on today's Apple Daily. Will MacBook prices fall soon? Should I buy an M1 Mac or Intel Mac now, or wait? What laser printer fax scanner should I get for Apple Silicon? And an update about TED.
For the latest Apple news, rumors, and leaks, every weekday at 12 UTC, join us in the iCave.
I'm iCave Dave, and if you want the latest Apple leaks, news and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell to join our notification squad, just like the guys at the end of today's show, and today there are some, so thank you. You may have noticed that yesterday I wasn't there in the live chat, and this is because my little boy Ted had to go to hospital, and it was pretty much at exactly the time that was all going on, so it was a bit dramatic. It's not normally dramatic. Now, my little boy, if you're not aware, is undergoing treatment for leukemia, so he does have to go into hospital quite often, and basically yesterday he got a temperature. It's almost a year since he's had to go in on a kind of emergency admission, if you like, but anytime he gets a temperature, he has to be taken to hospital, he has to spend a couple of nights, he has to have IV antibiotics, all that kind of thing, so it's kind of an expected thing for us whenever he gets a temperature. But we didn't expect that he was going to get one yesterday. And here in the UK, it's been snowing for a couple of days, so it's really, really terrible on the roads. We couldn't get our cars out early in the snow, so we knew that we wouldn't be able to get them out yesterday, so we called the hospital and they said, call an ambulance, we'll bring him down. So that's what we had to do. And we said to them, do not bring the ambulance onto the front of our home because you will not get out again. They said, no, it's fine, we've got 4x4 ambulances, but thank you for giving us the heads up. So they arrived, they came to collect him, they couldn't get out, as expected, when they'd reversed onto the slope that leads up to the main road from our home. So we're sitting there waiting for this ambulance to actually take him to the hospital so he can get the treatment that he needs. A digger turns up, a big JCB starts helping to kind of clear the snow in front of the ambulance. The guy's out there with his shovel, the ambulance is sliding around. So it was all a bit dramatic. But I just wanted to let you know, he got to hospital, he got the treatment that he needs, he's going to be there for a couple of nights, but he is okay. His temperature's come down, all the usual stuff, like there's nothing to worry about specifically, but I really appreciate all of your good wishes. Thank you so much for understanding as well about me not being there during the bit that I'm normally there for. So thank you, but Ted is doing well and he'll be back here soon and probably getting in the way of my videos again. But today is pretty much an iCave Answers special. I love answering your questions, and there isn't a huge amount of news out there. There's a little bit about TSMC, where they've had a bit of an outbreak at one of the factories, or at the local hospital near the factories, so they are having to kind of isolate some of their staff. It doesn't look like it's going to affect anything, so I didn't really want to go into too much of that, but we're going to get into some iCave Answers, so let's get right into those right now. So Alric Samuel Godfrey writes, do you think that there could be a chance MacBook prices could also reduce in the near future? Now that they're ditching the TouchBar and they're making their own silicone, I'm sure even with MiniLED, the new Macs shouldn't cost the same to manufacture as previous Macs. I believe this cost is going to go down a lot more because Apple will continue to improve their production standards for Apple Silicon along with TSMC. Do you think there's a good chance they will reduce the price, or do you think they could bring in a new feature that will fill the gap? What do you think that could be? Very interesting question, and this is the kind of stuff that we talk about quite a lot on the channel. So in terms of reducing the price in general, I don't think the baseline price is going to come down, but we will come to how you will probably be able to get cheaper Apple Silicon Macs a little bit later in this answer. So first of all, yes, the production prices will come down. Apple is not paying, obviously, the premium to Intel for the individual chips. It looks like Apple Silicon processors cost somewhere in the region of $75 to $80 to produce, and at least the higher end Intel processors could have been $200 to $300. So there's definitely a price gap there. Now, the removal of the touch bar is an interesting point, but I don't think it's actually going to reduce costs very much at all, because I actually think they're going to replace the touch bar with individual keycaps that have displays within them for that function row of keys. So I think that those keys will still be reconfigurable, but they will be individual pressable keys, and I think that's the way that it's going to go. That could actually be more expensive to produce than the touch bar, so I don't think there's actually going to be a cost saving there, assuming that that's the way they go. Now, there have been patents put forward by Apple for this, so I think it's likely. It's not 100% a guarantee. but I think that's what Apple would likely do. I don't think they'd just get rid of the Touch Bar and go, yeah, we're going back to normal keys because they're better. I don't think there's going to be a cost saving there. Every year, obviously, Apple is developing new chips, and that is something that the cost isn't really going to come down on the individual processors, because every year they're going to be making the processors more complex, and it's exactly the same as with Intel chips. The chips don't get cheaper, they get faster. So that's probably what's going to happen on that side. What I think will happen is that the product itself will get better. You are going to get the faster Apple Silicon going into these laptops, but you are also going to potentially get things like titanium casings, which we've talked about in the past, which is much stronger and harder than aluminium for the same weight, but also lighter than steel. So you're going to get a better product for it potentially if that's the route that they go down. We've already discussed that they are redesigning the MacBooks in general, so they are probably going to be getting more of the I/O back, so that is going to make the products better. But, as you say, these products are going to become cheaper for them to produce, and this is where I think we're going to do well. If we look at the iPhone line, right now in the iPhone lineup, we've got iPhone 12 starting at $699, I believe, $699 for the Mini, $799 for the regular iPhone 12, $999 for the Pro, $1099 for the Pro Max. But underneath the iPhone 12 Mini, you've got the iPhone 11 at $599, and you've got the iPhone XR at $499, and you've got the iPhone SE at $399. So they're keeping older models around and putting them at a lower price. And I would love to see Apple do exactly the same with their Macs. So when we get the M2 Max coming out this October, let's say, October-November time, we could well see that the M1 Max, with the older design language and the older processors, getting a price drop, so that Macs become more accessible to more people. And if you want the latest and greatest, you can still get that, and it'll still cost you about the same price, around about the $999 starting point for a MacBook Air. But if you want to get a MacBook Air SE, for example, or just generally last year's MacBook Air with the M1 processor, maybe it'll start at $899 or $799 with a lower storage base. So maybe a 128 gig storage at $799 with an M1 processor. That would be really compelling for people that just need something light that they can take out. Basically a Mac-powered Chromebook, but it's also still got the power in there to do some processing. You can plug in an external SSD and edit your videos off of that. That would be the way that I think Apple would go. And I've said right from the start, before Apple Silicon even came out, that we could be looking at something like a Mac Mini SE, which could be in a smaller form factor, something like an Apple TV, maybe at the $499 that it used to come out at. That was the original pricing for the Mac Mini, with less storage, because it's easy to hang storage out the back of it, with maybe a little bit less connectivity, but you can attach it to a Bluetooth keyboard, Bluetooth mouse, your TV, something like that, or obviously more dedicated screen setups like this. And it would be just such an easy way for people to get into Mac operating systems in general. So that's how I see Apple Silicon coming to lower price points. I don't see it being new products coming out with a lower price point. I see it as being the previous products sticking around at a lower price point, like we do with iPhones. Hopefully that answers your question. So next up, we get a lot of questions along these lines, and this comes from Merchannel. This didn't have hashtag iCave answers on it, so hopefully he doesn't mind me using the question. But have to ask again, do you buy an M1 Air or Intel Mac, then sell it in Q3? People who need something now are going to buy an M1 Air and sell it in Q3 when the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros arrive. But now it seems incoming Air redesign will kill resale price of the M1 Air. Maybe Intels have less to lose in value if you can sell them later. So, interesting point. So I definitely think that if you want to get yourself some Apple Silicon, if you want a Apple Silicon Mac, or you want a Mac of any sort at the moment, you should just buy one. And I said this before when people were asking me if they should wait for the 14-inch, and I said, what 14-inch MacBook Pro? Like, there was a couple of very vague rumours. It seems like they have solidified a little bit now, but I genuinely don't think many people, unless you're waiting to go from something like Intel up to Apple Silicon, which is what I was doing, because it's a huge jump, I don't think people should wait. I think if you need a computer now, buy a computer now, and buy what you need right now. Now, in terms of the Intel stuff, I genuinely think if you have to have access to Windows through Boot Camp, like a native Windows environment, then get an Intel one. But understand that the Intel ones are going to plummet in value very quickly. I think if you just need a MacBook right now, if you need a Mac of any sort, pick yourself up a MacBook Air or a Mac Mini if you want a desktop. The starting price is like $699 for this thing and $999 for the MacBook Air. Really, really compelling. And if you go for the base configurations, they don't tend to lose much value over time. If you look at how the Intel ones did until Apple Silicon came out, at least, you'll see that even 2012 MacBook Pros are still selling for like $400 or $500 on eBay. There is a lot of demand still for people to get a Mac. They want to get a Mac at a decent price point, and so people are going back that far because they are still effective computers. Do I think you should buy an Intel to resell because it will resell for more than an Apple Silicon Mac? Absolutely not, because I don't think that the Intel ones will keep their value in the same way that the Apple Silicon stuff does now, mainly because the jump in performance has been so profound. And I do think as well that the performance jump from M1 to M1X is going to be big as well, but I don't think it will affect the M1s anywhere near as much as it does Intel. So right now, the reasons that people might be buying an Intel one is because they need to have more displays. I think it's a silly argument for it, to be completely honest, because we've got spaces, we've got multiple desktops that you can use within these, so you can swipe between desktops as it is. You're not looking at two desktops at the same time in most cases, so being able to swipe between multiple full-screen applications is actually a pretty good compromise. So I don't think that's a very good reason to do it, but I understand that some people would. The only reason, I genuinely still think the only reason to get an Intel Mac at this point is because you must have Boot Camp available and being able to boot directly into Windows. We've already seen that Parallels is coming quite quickly ahead with having Windows running in virtualization on the Macs. So for individual apps that you need to use occasionally, I genuinely think that's going to be a much better way of doing it. But you are not going to be, playing Intel games on those Macs through Parallels particularly well. So what would I do? I would say M1 MacBook Air or M1 Mac Mini are a great point to start from. If you go for a base configuration and stick whatever else you need into it, the RAM isn't really going to hold you back at this point in most cases, unless you're running a production studio. This is the base one. Every day we're making videos on it. We have no problems. And if something better comes out that you absolutely need, you can resell these things and you will probably lose maybe $100 on them, something like that. It's not going to be a dramatic drop at all. And finally, Rob asks, and this one I'm kind of throwing open to you guys because I don't have an answer for it. Help, what is a compatible multifunction laser printer scanner fax machine that could work fully with M1 Macs? Can anyone recommend one? Must be compatible with Big Sur and have all the drivers so that I can print, scan, fax from a multifunction machine, preferably wirelessly, and be AirPrint compatible for iOS printing. Now, I am not a big printer person. I do not do a lot of printing, so I am throwing this open to our community. Now, a couple of things that I will point out is that DriverKit should have brought over compatibility drivers for everything that was available for an Intel before. So, I'm opening this up to you guys. Give us some suggestions down in the comments. I didn't think fax was still a thing that people did, but apparently it is. So if that's important, fair enough. I personally have a Samsung C430W, I think it is. It's a laser printer. It was pretty cheap when I picked it up, but it does not scan, it does not fax, it does not do all of those other things. But it is a laser printer and it was pretty cheap. And it's done pretty well for us. My kids print a lot of stuff. But if you have any real good suggestions for something that can do all of those stuff for Rob, please let me know down in the comments. That would be really cool. And finally, Notification Squad, let's hit it up. We have got some members. Thank you so much, because I know you guys felt sorry for me yesterday when nobody wanted to join it over the weekend. So we have Apple Pro Tech, Idiot with Internet, Vinay Spider, who was in it already, but I think he just felt really bad for me. Johnny Jetski and Marcos, thank you all so much for joining the Notification Squad. If you want to join the Notification Squad too and be as cool as these guys, all you need to do, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and get notifications whenever a new video goes live, which is 12 UTC every weekday, plus all the random stuff that I add in when I've got something to look at, because I don't like to put in like product demos and stuff in these shows. Do all that and you will be a member of the Notification Squad and get a shout out too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.